So personality class, what I thought I'd do is I wanted to go over the syllabus with you guys and some of the assignments. You guys could read it, but some things I might want to explain a little bit better. And so it's always good to have the explanation with it as well. So I figured I'd go through it for you guys. So first of all, welcome to Personality and Individual Differences. Okay, that is the title of this class. This is a required class for the psychology major, and it is a class that you can count towards your psychology minor. So you could do either one of those. If you're just taking this class for fun, that's cool too. We're happy to have you. Oh, by the way, they are no longer going to require this class for the major in the somewhat distant future. So like in a year or so, this is going to be an elective course. You're going to be grandfathered in if you are in the psych major right now, so don't worry about it, but I just thought I'd put that up there. So I am Dr. Tyler Harrison. I've got my office here. That's not going to be very useful for us because this is going to be an online-only course. Okay. I know you did not sign up for an online-only course, and trust me, I did not sign up to teach an online-only course as well. There are many advantages for the course being face-to-face. I can see when you understand things. I can see when you don't understand things. It's easy to communicate to one another. I can remind you to do assignments. And it's a whole lot more work for me to make all these videos, put them online and things. So this is something that neither of us signed up for, and I am sorry for that. But considering the state of the world, considering the state of the country, with the COVID-19 virus, this is just the way that we're going to have to do things. And so that means there's going to be learning pains from you guys. Some of you might not have had an online course before. So I'm going to be tolerant of you guys' mistakes for, switching to online learning, trying to figure things out. Hopefully you'll be the same way with me. I'm trying to figure things out as well. So if I don't post things exactly the same way, just shoot me an email or something and I will try to remedy or fix that. So let's just, be cautious with one another and realize that this is not what we initially signed up for. Okay. So personality and individual differences, that's the title of the class. We are going to be studying a lot about personality, but we're going to learn some techniques. We're going to learn some research methods and statistics that apply not just to the study of personality, but to all of differential psychology, all the psychological study of individual differerences. So things that we learn about the assessment of personality, how we evaluate personality. We can use those same research methods and statistics to evaluate the study of intelligence, the study of cognitive abilities, who has good memory, who has good attention, who has bad memory, and a wide variety of other measures of individual differences in psychology. So we're focused on personality. Everything's going to be from the perspective personality, but the techniques that we're going to learn can be applied to any individual differences study within psychology, something that we will come to time and time again. Okay, personality is the scientific study of someone's usual characteristic, feelings, behavior, and thoughts. The part that I want you to focus on here is scientific. We are going to look at things primarily from the scientific lens where there has been research study. There's plenty out there on personality that is not scientific. There's plenty of things that you probably think that this course is going to cover, that you might be excited about, that we are not going to cover because it is not scientific. There's not any research behind it. And in fact, sometimes it might be something that is wrong. Okay, many times there's some commercial products that a lot of people are very, very interested in, that is very, very pervasive in our culture. They turn out to be really bad personality measures or really unscientific ways of assessing personality. Good example of this that we'll be learning about is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Everybody loves that test. You've probably taken that test yourself, but it is not the best measure of personality, and we will learn why that is the case. So be prepared for me to crush some of your hopes and dreams and what you consider good personality research. okay, because we're going to go over and try to look at the science behind a lot of these measures of personality. Okay, we have our learning objectives here. If you don't know, we have to standardize these across our the Department of Psychological Science. That way, these are always the same across all of these different courses, but you guys don't pay attention to them, and I don't pay too much attention to them as well. But generally what we're going to do is we're going to define what personality is very early on, and we're going to look at the many different approaches to studying personality. There is not one way to study personality. There's 500 ways. Well, that's a little bit of exaggeration, but there are many different ways from many different viewpoints of studying personality. We're going to look at personality through a few different lenses throughout this course. No one way is the best, and there's many different ways, all with their advantages and their disadvantages. So we'll look at that. We're going to spend a great deal of time evaluating whether or not a measurement of personality is good or if it's bad. How do we tell whether or not it's good or bad? Our second and third modules of this course are going to spend a lot of time looking at that. How do we tell what is good personality research? What is bad personality research? How can we tell if this measure of personality is good or bad? We're going to look a lot of that, about things like that. And lastly, we're going to look at what personality is correlated with. So is it correlated with job performance? What personality traits predict who's going to be good at their job? Something that's very practically important. In fact, if you've taken a personality test, a real one, many times it is for job selection, trying to determine whether or not you would be a good fit for the job that you are planning or job that you are applying to. So we'll look at everything that personality is correlated with in the last part of this class. Your textbook is this one. So your textbook is by Gene Twinga and Keith Campbell. This is their first edition of the book. If you have had me for another course, typically I say, well, you can get the edition that is in the syllabus or the edition beforehand, and that way it can save you some money. This is the first edition, so unfortunately I can't do that. But it's from 2017, so there's plenty of used copies of this textbook. Do I like this textbook? Meh. It's not a bad textbook. There's many bad textbooks of personality, but it has things that it does very well. In fact, it presents the material and personality the way that I would like to present it to you. So that's why I've chosen this book. But some chapters are better than others, and there will be periods of time where I go on a rant and tell you that this chapter in this book is bad and they need to fix it. And I found that the more you know a discipline, the more you hate the textbooks of that discipline. Like there's some personality textbooks that I like, but if you go into something like memory, something that I study, oh man, I cannot find one that I'm 100% happy with. I'm always like, they mentioned this one thing and it's wrong. Speaking of which, I am a cognitive psychologist. I study memory, I study attention. You might be thinking, what is a cognitive psychologist doing teaching personality? The kind of research I do is differential in nature. So it deals with individual differences. Why do some people have better memory than others? So the approach that I use with my research is the same approach that personality psychologists use with theirs. And I've studied personality a little bit with some of the research studies that I do, but my focus mainly is on memory and attention. Will you need the textbook? Yes. With my lectures, they're going to, okay, let me back up. For test, which is probably what you care about, there's going to be some material that just comes from my lectures and just comes from my lecture notes. That's not in the book. There's going to be some stuff from the book that is not in the lecture notes that's going to be on the test. Much of the test is going to be an overlap between the book and what's in my lecture notes. So if you do not have the book, can you pass this class? Yes, you can. Will you get an A in this course? Probably not. So I recommend that you get the textbook. Also, there's some things I'm going to do a good job presenting on. If you don't mind me tooting my own horn, there's some things that I might not do a good job presenting on. Maybe you learn better reading things than having me talk about them. So if you get it from two places, you get it from Tyler and you get it from the book, there's a greater probability that you will learn what it is that we're talking about. Maybe the book is confusing. Well, then you can listen to what I have to say, and maybe I will not be confusing. So preferably listen to the lecture and read the book. That's how you're going to do the best in this class. There's going to be some things directly from the textbook that you're going to be tested on that are not going to be in the lecture notes, so beware of that. This course is entirely on D2L. Make sure that you're checking D2L every single day. I'm going to put announcements on there. If you have any questions, there's a discussion post where you can ask your questions, and I will post back so that the entirety of the class can look at these things. So make sure that you are checking D2L. You should be well versed in this system by now, but if you have any problems, let me know, and I can see what I can do to fix them. All right, so now we get to the part of the class, the syllabus, that you are most interested in. How will you be assessed? Okay, how will you be assessed? Well, I am of the opinion that I want to have as many assessments as possible given the restrictions of the class. It's better for memory, okay? The more we space out learning, the better you are to remember that material in the future. So let's say that you're going to study for a test. You got a test, let's say, next Friday. Should you study for 1 hour tonight, 1 hour the next night, and 1 hour before the test, or study 3 hours right before the test? Well, to get the best grade on the test, it doesn't matter if you cram or not, okay? You're going to do about the same. But if we look at long-term retention, 10 years down the road, how do you remember the best? It's when you space your study out. So I am trying to trick you guys. In the structure of this class, since I'm having so many small assignments, I'm forcing you to space out your study. At least that is the idea. It's hard enough to do this in a class that lasts 1 month, but that is the goal, to space out your study as much as possible. So another thing that I do is I try to reduce the anxiety for any one test by having mini tests. So you'll look, I believe that there's no assignment that's worth more than 15% of your grade. I used to hate taking classes where there would be a midterm and there would be a final, and both are 50% of your grade. I don't think that you guys really experienced that, but it wasn't that long ago where that was the norm. So you'd be very, very anxious, and you might not know how the professor tests. And so you get the midterm and you bomb it. And if you bomb that midterm, there's no recovering from that. Well, whereas here, if you do horribly bad in test 1, there's still a potential that you can make an A in the course. So that's my philosophy there. All my assessments are not norms-based, they are criterion-based, which you might be scratching your head thinking, what the heck I'm talking about. A norms-based test, you're trying to look at individual differences within your sample or within a population. So who's the smartest, who is the dumbest at this particular thing? That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not comparing you to any of your other classmates. I have a certain criterion, boom. If everybody gets above that, well, everybody can make an A in this course, and I don't mind justifying that to the chair of the department. Everybody deserved an A. I gave them a rigorous class. They all rocked it, and they all get an A. Okay, that also means that if everybody does horribly poorly, everybody makes an F, and I don't have a problem with that as well. Well, I don't want you to do that. I would like for you guys to learn the material as much as possible, but know that your grade is not impacted by anybody else's grade in this class. I have a standard. You meet it, you get a good grade. You don't meet it, you get a bad grade. Okay. So how are you going to be assessed? We've got some quizzes. There are going to be 4 quizzes throughout this course. Typically in this class, when it's not a summer class, I do more quizzes, but hey, we only got so much time. There's going to be 4 quizzes, 1 quiz before test 1, 2, and 3, and then 1 quiz that's going to be over the syllabus, so over what I'm talking about right now. And that is kind of an easy grade, hopefully, knock on wood. And 2, it's just to make sure that you know the policies of this class early on, so that you know what you've signed up for before 2 weeks goes around and you're like, I didn't know that I was supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. So the tests are going to be all multiple choice. Typically, I'm going to have 8 or so questions. You are going to have about 7 or 8 minutes for the, about 8 minutes, sorry, for the quizzes. So just be prepared for that. I'll talk a little bit about timing here in a second. All right. I enjoy talking with you guys. I cannot do that in this format as well, the online only course. So to try to remedy that, we're going to have some discussion posts. So I will ask you some discussion prompts. You are going to respond to the discussion prompt, and then I would like you to comment on 2 of your peers' posts as well. So each of these discussion posts will be worth 5 points. 2 of those points are based off of whether or not you did an adequate job commenting to your colleagues or your fellow students' post, and 3 based off of your own individual post. So make sure that you are doing that. And if you have any questions, let me know. Test. Okay, there will be 3 tests throughout the semester. The test, you will have 1 hour to complete. And the test will be both of multiple choice and short answer. Typically, there'll be something like 40 multiple choice questions and 5 short answer questions where you have to answer like 5 out of 6 short answer questions, or 4 out of 6, or something along those lines. So you have some autonomy in picking which of those questions you would like to select to respond to. Short answer, I'm not looking for a page. I'm not looking for complete sentences. I'm just looking for the answer of the question. So if I say list 4 reasons why, you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, put them down. As long as I understand what's going on, you'll get full credit for that. So you don't need to write in complete sentences, but you do need to write it in such a way that I know exactly what you're talking about. So there's sometimes where people might be kind of vague and assume that I know what they're talking about, but I can't assume that you know what you're talking about. So make sure for the short answer questions that you are fully answering it so that I know that you truly know the material. Test will be due by midnight, their due date. So make sure that you're taking that test before 11 p.m. I mean, hopefully you would be doing that, but you know, some people are night owls. I give you an hour. Some people say, hey, Dr. Harrison, that is not nearly enough time for me to take this test. But unfortunately, I have to deal with, if I give people too much time, well, there's time to Google things. There's time to look things up in the book, look at their notes, and I want to prevent that as much as possible. By the way, online tests, you're not allowed to look at your notes. You're not allowed to look at the textbook. You're not allowed to look at anything. You're not able to look at previous quizzes. I don't want you to tell one another what questions are on the test. For instance, if you have taken the test earlier than somebody else. So do not do that. That is bad. So the only thing that you have access to is the test. You can't use the internet. Don't use anything else. So those are the tests. You'll have those approximately once every week and a half, something like that. We'll look at the schedule here. At the end, which is a Tuesday, so this is Tuesday, August 2nd, you will have your final exam. And the final is cumulative. Why do I make the final cumulative? Is it because I'm a horrible, mean person? Well, maybe. But the final is cumulative because that requires you to study all the material over again. So this is requiring you to space your study out even more. And again, this is better for your long-term retention. We also know from cognitive psychology that there's something called the testing effect. If you are tested on material, you're able to remember that information for a longer period of time than if you just were to study that material for an equal amount of time. So testing is a very effective way to increase long-term retention. And that's what this is all about. Okay, do I want you to know material for the final? Yes, but I would much rather prefer that you know this material 50 years in the future. If you want to go to graduate school, if you want to, whatever you want to do, I want you to remember this material when you're in your 80s, okay? So that maybe if you come and visit me when I'm like in my 90s or I'm like 100 years old and I'm like in a nursing home and I ask you, okay, tell me the difference between Freud's theory of personality and Carl Jung's, you're able to tell me that. or else you break my poor 100-year-old heart, and that would be horrible. So don't want to do that. So I'm trying to make sure that you know this material for the long haul, okay, not just for this class. So that's why I do these mean things like make cumulative finals and have mini tests. There are 2 papers in this course. One is a fairly simple paper. Okay, this is the Big 5 paper. Let me pull up. Whoop, here are the guidelines for the Big 5 paper. Now, if this were not an online class, we have a test that is very reputable, very important for the history of personality assessment, called the Neo Personality Inventory. And you would take that test on using a pen and paper, and you would find out something about your personality using the Big 5 theory, something that we'll talk about a little bit later on after test 1. I can't give you that test because we're not in person, and I can't put that test online because it is intellectual property, trademark, all that kind of stuff. It would be bad if I were to put that online, so we can't do that, unfortunately. So I've got the next best thing. Okay, I've got a free version created by a psychologist. So go to this website, take the test, and it's going to give you your scores on the Big 5 personality traits: extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, conscientiousness, and openness to experience. Your paper, what you're doing, it's going to be 2 to 3 pages, and you're going to describe what scores you got. Why does this make sense? Okay, I'm very extroverted. This makes sense because I'm in all these clubs. I take all these leadership positions. I'm very low in neuroticism. I don't experience that much anxiety. This makes sense because X, Y, and Z. Or you can debate it. You might say, hey, I think I am very agreeable, but it's